All right, all right. Good morning, folks, wherever you're joining us from. A very good morning to each and every one of you, and welcome to our broadcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have all of you in the live this morning, the FYI family. Good to be back in the city, in the national capital city, in Georgetown. Good to be back, folks. When you visit some of those areas, other places in this country, my Lord, sometimes you don't want to come back, you know. You don't want to come back, Everett and Elise and Gladstone, Beatrice. Sometimes you just don't want to come back, you know. This is what it is, June Cameron. You see why you don't want to come back? The bugs, the bugs, the bugs. The tadpoles, the cricketers. Alison Grant, good morning to you. Eula Rubens, good to have you on the live. Who me? Yes, you. Same you. Who me? And John is here as well. And I see Belinda is here. Kevin is here. Belinda Halls, Anderson. Siobhan McDonald is here as well. Gladstone, Matthews. Good to have all of you all on the live this morning. Too much happening. Too much, like it's more than us. Too much happening. There's a season. And you know, the PPP looking for any advantage that they can have. Donnet Niles and McGarrell Seville. Any advantage that they can eke out, that's what they're looking to do. And I really want to thank all the folks who Mandy Cummins, good to have you on the live. Mandy, you're short, girl, sorry. Mandy, you're short. You see, when you're short, people sometimes just look right over you. You might even notice you standing there, you gotta look down. Say, oh yes, it's you, Mandy. Charlene, good to have you. Charlene, Beatrice, Everett, Yvette, good to have all of you on the live this morning. Right. Humi says, if we know when Parliament is going to be dissolved. You see, the whole thing is, I was advised that it's anytime within that 3 months of the announcement. Yeah. It doesn't have to be 3 months to the day. You know, it could be the day before the election, they dissolve Parliament. Anytime within that 3 months. That's what I'm being told. You know, I don't practice laws. I'm depending on those who read this stuff every day, you know, to let us know. And that's what I'm being told. It's not 3 months before, like the exact, But it is what it is. It is what it is. And we got to go out there and we got to put out our best foot, our best works together. I'm still hopeful. Call me crazy, Harold, and the other folks joining us this morning. Call me a little crazy, but I'm still hopeful that we could get this coalition thing going. I'm still hopeful. I was talking to Amanza the other evening. I was laid up in a hotel in Santa Rosa, and I was talking to Manza. We had a long talk. Manza talks a lot. I'm the silent type. We talked for probably close to 2 hours, and we were talking about coalition politics. And I was telling her that for me, this is a marriage that I'm fighting for, right? This is a spouse that I'm fighting for. I don't know if my spouse got other men, or given the times other women, But I'm still in love with this girl. That's what I was telling Amanza. And these 10 years, we've been at this marriage, and it ain't the best, but I think we got something we can work with. I think we have something that we can work with. And I'm fighting for this thing. And some people telling me, look, it's better you go in the other direction. Right? Some people in my ears, you better go in the other direction because this thing is making sense. But I want this marriage to work. That's the problem. Andrew? You got to stay in the crease to make the runs. Hope I'm getting that cricket analogy right. You got to stay in the crease to make the runs. And I want to stay in the crease and bat for this family. I see MP Fernandez on the live. I don't know if I can bring her in via audio because I want to talk a little bit about Maruka and some of what we saw there. I know she was there over the weekend as well. I don't know if she's willing to lend us her voice this morning. But I want to fight for this marriage. I don't want to just throw it away. With the understanding. Y'all tell me for wrong. Charlene, tell me for wrong. Anita and Grace and Yonette. The women especially. Right? Judy says that her loyalty is to the voters that have her where she is today. Tell me for wrong. Right? But in all relationships, at the base level, the same. Right? When you get a guy, Marlon, or when Natasha, you don't want the guy get everybody else. It must be he and you alone, and you must got little financial security, right? You must got a little shelter over your head. That's not the basic things people want. You must got a little respect for each other. That's not some of the basic things people want. I find whatever relationship you're going, people want those basic things. They want to be appreciated. They want to be loved. They want to be heard. Right? Certain basic things you could skip around. Right? I've been around the block a couple of times. Not plenty. And like I would hear people say, oh, I wouldn't do this if you're there with me. I wouldn't do X or Y. And then when they give you full time, you become the problem. Them same things start to be a problem, So what we can do, right? We can break up this 10-year marriage now for something that look younger and hotter, right? I don't want to do that. I want to work through this thing because you know what I find? Right? I'm not talking about abuse and that sort of extreme, right? We're talking about normal, regular relationship, not abuse and so on. I find if you go through a couple things together, if you go through the struggles together, to get that house, to get that car, you drive the car differently. You know, you and your spouse have to throw bucks hand and this and that. The number of days you eat shine rice. I ain't talking about gourmet shine rice. I'm talking about hard time struggle shine rice. Right? Y'all know y'all get up and there's 2 tennis roll and 4 y'all, 5 y'all in this house. You come through them struggles. You know, you have a better appreciation. You know, my big son, I call him the struggle child. You know, I call him the struggle child. He's 16 now. But I know the days as a single parent, I didn't have it. I didn't have it. I put on, what you call it? I take a pillowcase and fold it and pin it up. You understand me? Because the Pampers that we had was to the play school tomorrow. I remember black tea in his bottle, and that child would drink the black tea. I'm talking about sugar and water, and they make a song. And when you come time to do better, you did better. But it's going through that struggle together. You got different appreciation, right? You have a different appreciation, and I look at that child now. You know, he sent me some words yesterday. Let's show off on you a little bit. You know, he checking in with the old boy overseas now and coming into his own, gonna be 17 this August. And he's checking in with his father. And he messaged me yesterday afternoon, you know, asking me how I was doing and so on. Let's show off on you a little bit. We're just talking about family and how it's difficult to walk away, right? Here he telling me. He says, thanks that I was telling him I'm helping him out. He raised the issue and said, all right, I can back you. Right? He said, thanks, Daddy. It means a lot to me. Every day I think of you and try to think of what you would do in certain situations. This is my son talking to me, right? He said, I've looked to you most of my life and still do. And what you, I still do look at you to this day and everything you strive to be. This is my son messaging me yesterday afternoon. That's the struggle. That's the struggle child. I see somebody say put on his spectacles. It's true story. Look at the spectacles on the table here. Right? Everything you strive to do. That's the struggle child. When you struggle and you come through, you got a better appreciation. Some of y'all expect me, you know. Belinda, all times. Put on your glasses. My son taller than me now. You know? My big son. I find it so hard to walk away from the coalition or the idea of coalition. And I meant to write a post, you know, coming out of Region 1 yesterday, and Morocco in particular. I was thinking of the coalition and, you know, how I find it so hard to go in a different direction, you know. I didn't come here on my own. Some people bring me. Right? Halim Majid has a book about reconciliation and something. He's writing about Teddy Jagan and Burnham and the 60s and 70s and 80s. And how Teddy Jagan and Forrest Burnham almost had a power, almost brokered a power sharing deal. Right? Almost brokered a power sharing deal. But something came in the way. I remember reading this book many years ago. Many years ago, reading about, let me see if I got it here. National Reconciliation and National Unity, 1984 to 1985. Forbes Burnham, that's the title of the book. Forbes Burnham national reconciliation and national unity, 1984 to 1985. And I was fascinated because you grew up and over your life, you hear about these factions this country got. And so when I read this book by Alim Majid, that's the name of the fellow, Forbes Burnham, National Reconciliation and National Unity, 1984, 1985. 85 is the year Forbes Burnham died, right? 94 is the year that Chetty Jagan died. But they were pursuing these things behind the scenes. And then up comes Mr. Granger on the scene and was able to make a coalition of differing political parties, some of whom were, diametrically opposed to the PNCR, but in the interest of moving the country forward, made it possible. I became even more fascinated, bought into the idea. And I remember Mr. Granger saying repeatedly about this. He had this big Benab approach, and all of us could have a seat under the Benab. I bought into it. I bought into the sweet talk of my paramour. Right? I bought into it. I invested in it. We had the kids. We put in the time. Been through a couple struggles to get a couple scripts. Teeth and tongue must bite. Mr. Sheila hate that phrase. Teeth and tongue. Every wedding. Teeth and tongue must bite. But it's true. We go through and we come through. And now you're telling me go some other direction. Right? Go down you change your mind. But I ain't changed my mind. You ain't asked me how I think. I haven't changed my mind. Right? I didn't come here easily in this thing. And I won't just give up. Marley, I was some there. Denise, I'm making sense. Sheila Boychel, I'm making sense. Right? Sheila Boychel says, sweet talk still important. Andrea Jackman. I find it difficult. Difficult. Tremendously difficult to move and to go down the road in some places. And then when you see what's happening in this country too, makes it even more difficult. When you see what's happening in this beloved country of ours, it becomes that more difficult. So what we saw at Region 1 yesterday, how many trillions or how much trillions of dollars? How many trillions of dollars we've poured into this economy? And I was shocked. I was shook at when I saw what is development, right? What is development in hinterland? I shocked. What is development? You see? And as I said, I didn't come here on my own volition. I didn't come here on my own volition. I shook it. I think we're gonna be joined by MP Fernandez. I didn't come here lightly. We didn't join here lightly. You see? This is some of the road we had to traverse. Cars go through that. One of the heart-wrenching things was this dump site that people telling us the water might be contaminated by, whatever are the substances being emitted into the ground from where they've put on this dump site that you're seeing here. Because in Santa Rosa, which is the capital of Morocco, right? In Santa Rosa, dear folks, in Santa Rosa, water coming through the tap, but it's creek water. Water is coming through the tap, but it's creek water. Creek water. MP Fernandez, a very good morning. I think we have you on with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Folks, we got MP Fernandez on with us this morning. I know the MP was in the region also over the weekend. The interment of our beloved Valerie Garrido Lowe happened over the weekend as well. And so we had all of that to contend with. Let me pull down let me try to do it from my end, the background music that we have. Yeah. MP, go right ahead. What are your thoughts? Some of what you saw and Region 1 in Moruca in particular, that sub-region, sub-district, Moruca, over the weekend as you talked to the people there as well and saw some of the quote-unquote development that's happening?
It's more of a lack of development, and when you go into these areas that are not central in the spotlight, you get a better understanding of how people are treated when they are no cameras set. We went in there, and it is amazing that the PP administration will come and they boast about we living in the fastest growing economy in the world, and you hear about the biggest budget ever, the budget over $1 trillion, and then you go into these areas, and in order for us to get to Quibana, it was the most difficult terrain persons have to travel. And shared more personal to me is how indigenous people are treated under the PP administration. They believe that they can do and give the basic minimum, and these people will remain loyal. And I believe that they will have a rude awakening at this 2025 general and regional elections. Enough is enough. And you see, I want to belabor the point at this moment as to why between 2015 and 2020, the coalition government put so much effort into making sure that indigenous communities had access to communication technologies, internet hubs being set up, radio stations being set up, because information is key and it's critical.
Correct.
Prior to 2015, the PP had no interest in having those areas access communication easily, because they wanted to go in there and be the custodians of the information that those communities receive. We pushed tremendously for that to happen. Now we have a system in place that you go up to these areas and everybody have a cell phone in their hands. So when you go and you do the work and these programs are aired in these areas, it is so much easier for persons to make informed decision as to where they should put their vote.
Correct. Talk to us, MP. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, sure. One of the things, and I know that you did the clip and you put it forward, and when you are driving along that road and you see this massive fence, you can't see beyond it, and you must think that if this fence is up like this, there must be something that these people want to hide behind there. So one would think that, they're doing massive work on this hospital that should be done. But when you go beyond that fence, there's absolutely nothing being done. Billions of dollars budgeted, nothing being done. And again, I say, I think it was in 2022 and 2023, I stressed the point that the PP administration keep giving these contracts to their friends, because they have to have a mechanism in place that they get the kickbacks. So they have to give it to specific people, and they keep giving tons of contracts in one direction to one set of people, and the people don't have the capacity to do all the works at once. So what they do is whatever is more visible to the public, they're going to go start that there first, and they're going to start several of those and hop around with those. And areas like where we were there in the sub-regions, they're going to leave that languishing behind because, that's not in the spotlight. So let the indigenous people suffer. Let them be last on their list to receive aid.
Yeah, the sad reality. We're showing that depiction of the where was allocated for the hospital, and what it is. The contract signed last November, and still no work has commenced as yet. And this is development. transformational.
But if that is not the height of iPad, I don't know what is. If that is not the height of the iPad,
Yeah, and you're able to see you're able to see the dump site. You're able to see and appreciate the fact that electricity is still not, with two power ships and all that, it's still not 24 hours there. Healthcare concerns, a
we
lot
should
of
talk
social
about the
concerns.
electricity. The electricity one, that's a big one because let me tell you, the Prime Minister comes to the National Assembly. He comes with a budget that he always makes a mess of. He never projects what is actually needed for works to be done within the country. So he always have to come back shortly after for more money. And one of the things that he always come back for is monies when it comes to power generations in communities like the sub-region there.
Mhm.
And at no point in time did the opposition ever vote against any allocation for those areas to be given monies for their electricity to be flowing regularly. So to see that after 5 years, after hundreds of millions, after billions, after trillions of dollars
Yeah,
being spent in the country, they cannot have reliable electricity to that area as yet.
yeah,
It goes to show, when the PVP, where they spend their money, let me put it like that, always show where their interests lie. Where they spend their money is where their interests lie.
yeah,
And that's why you would see themselves and their friends and their family and their favorites living the best life ever, having luxurious vacations, living the best life, the most expensive vehicles. Those are the people that piques their interest. That's where the money is spent. That's where taxpayers' dollars is spent. And then when you go to those areas, right, we went to, like you said, Sharon, to our comrade's funeral up there. And it is hurtful to see that in a country that is supposed to be having easiest access to resources at this stage of our economic development. And this is not the PPP magically doing beautiful work, made the country the fastest growing economy. It is because a contract was signed under the AP and AFC administration that allowed oil resources to be flowing within the country right now. This is not the magical work of the PPP. They have done absolutely nothing to make these communities better. And let me tell you this: the PPP always goes to areas, and they have an attitude of creating a dependent nation. That is something that we need to step away from as a people, particularly Amerindian people or indigenous brothers and sisters, my indigenous brothers and sisters. When you see a government is not empowering you to control your future in an economic sense, have that economic independence of the state institution, then you should have a serious issue with the direction that the country is moving in.
yeah,
At no
yeah,
point in time have I seen any policy measure that speaks directly to economic empowerment and self-sustainability of indigenous people in Guyana. They're going to go and say, oh, we're going to build a school here and there. You know why they're going to do that? Because the contract is given to their friends, and at the end of it, they pocket half of the money and live their best life ever. And the people, actual economic activities and anything that resembles a sustainable life without having to depend on the government is shelved, because they want to go there and they want to preach to you, and they want you to have to sit down and listen, like what they're doing right now with the cash grant distribution.
yeah,
They sat in parliament and they, it stood and shouted in parliament and sat in parliament for hours on end, speaker after speaker, about cash grant and cash grant. And then they want the people of the country now to be forced to sit and listen to them and their trash talking, belittling and dehumanizing the Guyanese populace for them when they have to go and collect that cash grant. The cash grant is the basic minimum that you can do when you have oil resources flowing trillions of dollars for this country. The cash grant is the least that you can do.
Correct is
So
right.
nobody is supposed to be subjected to the dehumanizing talk.
Correct is
Oh,
right.
this government is so good to you. If the government was so good to you, you would have not have to be dependent on a $55,000 cash grant to aid your children's livelihood for them to be able to go to school. You would have been economically liberated as a people, and that is the direction that you would have been going in.
Yeah.
Not have to subject yourself to listening to absolute nonsense by ministers of government that should not even have the microphone at their hands and that title to be called honorable.
Yeah, and away from children too.
And
So
away from children.
so that's happening, and you get a sense too that the further out you get from the capital, from Georgetown, the more expensive things are too. Job concerns for people in the in Region 1 in Moruca. People said the jobs aren't there. You got to leave. You got to come to town to find work. You got to leave your family behind and all of that, right?
Well, not just, but your first point is one to have that I should stress a little bit on when it comes to the cost of items there and the inflation, because and sometimes it is important for us to be repetitive on these things because I have spoken about it several times, but again, we need to repeat. When we talk about inflation, and we always speak about what the prices are, how the prices are skyrocketing on the market, and so it is important for people to remember that when we speak about inflation, the Bureau statistic give us data that speaks to the urban consumer price index. The CPI that we look at is the urban data. It caters not for rural areas. Because if they are to take into consideration the inflation that is going on in the rural communities, Sherrod, it will be unbelievable. If you leave Georgetown, I want to make one comparison. If you leave Georgetown, you pay $100, sometimes $120 for a small bottle of water, and you go into the interior, I am telling you, you're paying close to $1,000 for the said bottle of water if you go up into the upper Mazaruni areas and so forth.
Yeah, that was the exact point I was going to raise. And so how do you account for that kind of inflation? So, a $55,000 in Georgetown is a different $55,000 in the upper Mars. And you're in the same country.
Correct.
You're in the same country.
Correct. We have to think seriously about the direction the PPP has put us in over the years. And I will believe a point again that the current opposition, we were in government for 5 years, 2 of which we were operating after a no confidence motion.
Hubbled.
And the People's Progressive Party has been there for a good 30 years almost.
Yeah.
That is what they have created. That system was created under them. They were comfortable with indigenous people being left behind. They are comfortable with them having to depend on them for basic necessities in life. So they can go and sit down and give them a long speech and say, oh, we care about you. That's why we bring some bag with some rice and some flour to share it out for you. That is the level of demoralization that people face.
Yeah.
And I cannot step away from the fact that that is where I came from. Those are my roots. So when you see when I went there into the sub-region in Region 1 there, and you see the little children running around in the mud, bare feet. Some of them walking to school, they're in some rubber slippers because that's not a long distances. Because and there's no road, they have to be plowing through the mud to get to school in the fastest growing economy.
Yeah.
And then you see the PPP representatives of the region had the audacity to be in their T-shirt and standing on the bridge that the coalition built, trying to protest when other persons are going there to speak about the deplorable state of the region.
Yeah. Yeah, the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of it, is not lost on us at all. But that's just one of the things I want to discuss this morning. Georgia, why don't you stay on with us for a couple of minutes? Maybe you can help us to walk through some of these other issues, because when I look at some of the other things happening, it comes across like it's a secretive government that we have. What's happening, in these other areas leaves much to be desired. Take, for instance, the appointment of the Chancellor and Chief Justice to the substantive position. Take, for instance, the appointment of the Chief Magistrate and Deputy Chief Magistrate. The appointments for the latter two, Chief Magistrate and the Deputy, was made by the Judicial Service Commission 5 months ago. And yet those persons are yet to be notified officially. And there is no swearing-in ceremony in sight. So it's just by sheer coincidence that we have two very, very learned, they say in law, persons at the chief justice, not chief justice alone, the lower level, the magistrates court, chief magistrate and deputy, two very, very young persons, and they're struggling to be confirmed. I mean, it is very, very sad. And then when you look to the top, this is um, Magistrate Judy Lutchman, and also Magistrate Alicia George, and then you have the Chancellor and the Chief Justice also being women. And one wonders if this is a kind of sexism at work here, or there's something else that is at work here, that we can't get these women confirmed and appointed to these top judicial posts in this country. It is very, very sad. Why is the PPP administration dragging their feet on this issue? This is on the ballot as well. MP?
Well, when it comes to particularly to top women there, I can tell you that it's important to note that the leader of the opposition made it very clear publicly that his recommendation goes towards their appointment. So there was no room left there for the PPP administration, particularly or Fanali, to say, oh, well, the opposition isn't meeting to agree with that. That was made very clear that that is the direction, and we collectively as an opposition, we are not only do we not have an issue, we are recommending that these women are confirmed in their position. So it is left solely at the feet of the PPP administration and their leadership that they are not confirmed right now.
Yeah.
And the only reason that and I can say, based on the trends of the PPP administration, you have to basically kiss the ring in order for them to play with you.
Yeah.
So it gives me the impression that those learned women, they have not kissed any ring.
Yeah.
So they are left unappointed,
In a season of ring
at this
kissing,
point.
in a season of ring kissing and knee bending, they're holding strong. But you know what's it's sad in a sense that if there's anybody, for instance, who has single-handedly been responsible for this government even being in office, it's the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice, Roxanne George Wiltshire, case after case during the last protracted election, ruled in favor of the then opposition, case after case. And when those matters were taken to the CTJ saw the sound reasoning and backed her up. In that, if there's anybody who is responsible for this government being in power, it is the Chief Justice. And then, then is why when I see these new ring kissers and knee benders, when I see them extolling the virtues of the PPP, I say better cocks than you crow. Better cocks than you crow. Right? But
well, Sherrod, well, it will everybody will have their own learned experience, if I can put it that way. Everyone will have their own learned, correct, and lived experience, because I can tell you from where I stand, I have the PPP. For me, they operate, and I did say it, I think, a couple of times in some comments that I made. But for me, the PPP, that they have begun to operate in a mafia-like organization, manner, and that is very if that does not concern you as a person, then you have to do some serious introspection to see what you have become and where you want to see this country go. At no point in time did the PPP take two steps back from the direction that where they were headed before.
Yeah.
They accelerated forward when it comes to the manner in which they discriminate and oppress people that stand against them. When it comes to their organized censorship of even free press, and they cloud these things under a facade of democracy. They love to throw that word around. The PPP is the most undemocratic institution that I have ever seen. They are they are never aligned to decision making in a democratic sense.
Yeah.
That is not where they stand. They believe that the order of the day is to financially empower themselves and to hold things over persons' head to force them into aligning themselves with that organization. You have to be very careful when you are even considering any of the nonsense that the PPP is trying to shove down your throat right now. I listen to, as a politician, you have to listen to all of the press conferences and so forth. And at best as I can, I try to follow. And I've listened to the way in which the Thursday press conference has come down from being a facade of professionalism into basic gutter talk at this moment, and it just goes to show the level of disrespect that comes from the highest level within their organization to the people, because they believe to themselves that you can talk to the Guyanese population in any manner, you can utilize whatever term you want with those persons, and it is all good and acceptable when you're sitting as a VP of the country. You can just basically remove yourself from any structured critical analysis and explanation as to what is going on in the country, and nobody would care. It is a disrespect to the intellectuals within our country, to disrespect to the ordinary Guyanese that is sitting listening for sound reasoning and leadership at this stage. And we need to step away from it.
Yeah, you get abused down instead on Thursday. So we got these top judicial officers still languishing, even though in the first instance, as you said, the leader of the opposition has already given his blessing for these ladies to be elevated to the substantive role of Chancellor and Chief Justice, and respectively, this is if memory serves me correctly, Janet Cummins Edwards, who is the acting Chancellor, and we got Roxanne George Wiltshire, who is the Chief Justice acting. Given his okay, I'm good with that. They function well. We've never had any issues with them conduct, unbecoming or otherwise, and he's given the okay from his part, the role that he has to play. And then now we're learning of these eminently qualified women, Alicia George in one instance, Lachman in the other. Given this, they're not the same way by the Judicial Service Commission for the role of Chief Magistrate and Deputy, and yet this government has no interest in moving that forward. So there's that on the one hand, and MP, I want to raise this other issue of the downed GDF helicopter, close to 2 years now, and the report of how that helicopter went down, of what they found in the black box from that helicopter, is still on the lock and key. And could you imagine, even with 5 dead from that, probably one of the most horrific aviation disasters in this country's history, Juan Edgel is saying that the cabinet has not been appraised of the report as yet, even though the report is concluded, and he doesn't know when that's going to happen. So the cabinet sees no urgency. 5 soldiers dead in that crash, and there's no urgency for the public to know what were the circumstances surrounding how that chopper went down. Was it Venezuela? Was it us? What happened, MP?
That's rude. That is you're speaking there about the lack of accountability under the PPP. administration. And if there is one thing that is a fact about the PPP government, something that you cannot challenge, and there is no evidence to go against this, is that the PPP has no concern when it comes to being accountable to the people of this country. Accountability is something not that they shy away from it, but they vehemently oppose it. They are in opposition to accountability at every level, in every organization within this country. The PPP has no interest in providing any sense of accountability to the people of this country. So anyone that goes in that direction with them is basically saying that they don't they support that. They support a lack of accountability. They don't have interest in those things. When it comes to this particular issue, I would have thought that because it concerned the highest ranking members of the GDF, it is just impossible for us to believe. This has drawn attention from the international community, regionally, internationally, and to see the PPP just basically showing that they have zero concern about who is looking on to even create a bit of a facade to show that, oh, we're going to go in this direction of giving answers. It just shows the people who we're dealing with, they care nothing about how they are perceived, and that is a very important thing for us to know. How is it that a government that has the eyes of the world looking at them, how is it that they are comfortable to operate as though they have impunity to every single matter? They don't care.
Correct. Agree
And you
to your
had the
points.
same issue. You had the same issue, and I must bring it up again with the Adriana Young incident. They operate as though they don't care, and then when the nation looks for answers and question it, they gaslight the entire country. A government that attempts to gaslight the entire country and say, like, how dare you ask this? This is not your place to demand answers. If we want to give it, we give it. If we don't want to give it, you don't ask for it. You just sit down and shut up. And that is the level of dictatorial leadership that is being provided by the PP administration. And Sharon, I will fight them. I will fight them to the last.
Yeah. And we all got to stand our ground with them and keep pushing back. Keep pushing back against the misinformation, against the bad governance, against the non-accountability. And on that note, I want us to focus on the other issue, because we did hear as a nation that the presidential candidate Fatih Mohammed made some damning allegation that it was Irfan Ali who was very, very instrumental in having one of his luxury cars cleared. Irfan Ali had come out and say that, let him produce the evidence and all of that. And then when the evidence was produced, persons were praising Irfan Ali, saying, yes, you've cornered him here. Big Sahib chief, you cornered him here. Let him produce the evidence. And then when the evidence came, I heard people talking about bro code. The bro code is that you don't talk on your brother, you don't squeal on your brother, ever, even if your brother trying to kill you. You go down, you go to your grave, knowing that you have upheld the bro code. And then I saw another school of thought that said, anybody who keeping text message so long got an ulterior motive. Got an ulterior motive. You got to watch them. So it has removed from any complicity or what have you, to now it's bro code and your suspicions. Now, here is Transparency International Guyana, right? That is a hub for this international body, Transparency International, that just released a report that said the government involved in corruption, we've been captured by elites and state resources are going to friends, family, and favorites, and all that. And chartered accountant Christopher Ram, attorney at law Christopher Ram, who is a advocate for good governance, he says that this can't be it. The vice president, whose name was called, and President Irfan Ali got to stump up with substantive responses to the allegations that were made. And it is not enough for Fernandez to say, oh, I did get the wrong invoice. What is he doing with receiving invoice in the first place, MP?
First thing I want to say is first thing I want to comment on is that bro code bro code comment that was made by I think it was Northern James Bond.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so that there is what I just spoke about, shared when I said that we're living in a country in which the government and now its affiliates try to gaslight you when you stand up and speak up against or expose anything that they're doing. And they use those terminologies to tell you basically that is their way of saying that just sit down and shut up and let whatever happens happen. And you should not stand in opposition of it. You should not expose it. All right? That is their way of gaslighting in the nation into silence, and that is an indirect act of prompting an action of censorship.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't speak up about these matters, and this whole thing about it is huge. Now, when it comes to the president of the country involved in anything GRA related, it he should do the honorable thing and resign.
Yeah.
The president of the country has no business in conducting anything, any conversation when it comes to GRA related. If anybody comes to the president of the country and says, oh, I have this tax matter, it is his duty and responsibility as the president of the country to say, this is Mr. Statia's number, and that is the person that you need to speak to on tax related matters. That is not my business. I do not handle that.
Mm-hmm.
However, what we saw there is the reality of what transpired in Guyana on a daily basis, and we need not pretend that is not what it is. In our country, the reality is that you pick up the phone and you call the political representatives, and they break every rule imaginable under what's supposed to be upholding the democratic institutions of our country.
Yeah.
They break every rule to accommodate whatever they want. And that is the point that needs to be stressed when it comes to the president's involvement with GRA. Because it doesn't start with him, it doesn't stop with him. It is extended to every single member of the political party called the PPP.
Yeah.
Once they are in a position of influence, they take control of every institution that is supposed to be operating in a democratic manner.
And an independent manner too.
There is no institution that they are not in control of like that. If the GRE at this stage, as was shown there, has been infiltrated by political players, you can imagine what is happening to other institutions.
Yeah.
That is the reality of what transpires on a daily basis. You have to be playing that game with them in order to get anything done in the country. And Sher, I said this thing coming on to 2015 election, and it's the same thing at play. We are living in a country in which little children were born and raised, and they got to voting age in a country that corruption is the order of the day.
Yeah.
Corruption is the order. You have pass a bribe here, pass a bribe. You go to the institution and they say these are the list of rules, but you could go to the PPP and their political leaders, and you can go and make a call and they can change the rules for you once you decide to kiss the ring and do as you're told when they call you to do what they want you to do. We went in the office in 2015, and there is nobody that can stand up and say that from 2015 to 2020 there wasn't a drastic change when it comes to corruption in public institutions in this country.
Yeah.
There was a drastic change. But even when it comes to the police force, and what persons talk about bribing police officers, and police officers were afraid to take a bribe under the David Granger presidency. Those are the facts of the day. But guess
now them boys
what?
come back.
Persons grew up and they were, and it became a norm, and a lot of people were fighting it. The businessmen and women were fighting it. They don't want to go by GRA and have to go through the systems in place and the laws of the country. They want to be able to stay in their offices with the AC and make a phone call and say, hey, this thing come in here. If I give somebody X amount here, they're going to be good. And the person, oh, yeah, I'll make a call for you, man. And then pass by Freedom House later and drop a little donation.
Yeah, something for the campaign. But you know what bothers me is not just this interaction, it's the unanswered question in terms of who else sent invoices, you know? Maybe
well, that's what I'm saying.
or
Sharon, let me tell you who else sent invoices.
Cybertruck, I don't know. Right? And were taxes for GRA, were they paid into the office of the president? You know, the taxes meant for GRA?
Sharon, as I said it before, this is not just GRA. And what we need to do is to expand this conversation because it encompasses every other public office.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, every public office, this is the system at play. That is what it says. And it just gives an example. That is just an example of what goes on every day. So you can just take a wild guess. Over the last 5 years, you got 365 days in a year, how many working days, and you just take an average, multiply by how many people you see do business in this country, you get an average as to the level of corruption that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
It's entrenched in the DNA of these people. That's who they are. They cannot remove themselves from it. They create laws in a manner that they always leave a loophole that the political organization is able to manipulate those laws.
Yeah. You know, in Starbuck News reported on this matter, they've noted the statement from the president that businessman and philanthropist Azruddin Muhammad, presidential candidate, he is untrustworthy and all of that. But what is interesting is that the paper said that they have reached out for comment from the president several times, but the president not responding to them. The man that says he's innocent in this matter, he's not responding. The press department for the office of the president is not responding to queries on this matter of the invoices being sent to him and what was he doing receiving invoice and whether he might have received the taxes as well. Now, these are, and it's part of what we've always said, that the people who support the PPP do not hold them to the high standard. Do not hold them to that high standard.
They do not, and I dare say that they do not care either. Everybody that goes in that direction basically goes in the direction with the hope that somehow, some way, they may benefit if they say or do the right things. That is the order of the day.
Yeah. So this is where we are. We have a president of a whole country who has come into this conflict of interest, receiving invoices for clearance of vehicles and telling people what they should pay in taxes to the GRA. And it just puts, for instance, Rita, it puts Sugate into different focus. Because if the vice president meeting people in his living room, investors in his living room, his personal home, as against sending them to the Go Invest, for instance, to have their concerns be addressed there. But he got
Go Invest doesn't operate as it should. Go Invest is not operating in the manner which it should. And that's what I'm saying. Every single organization has been infiltrated with the same kind of corrupt practices. And I want to comment on the fact why Irfan Ali may not be responding to the questions being asked by the media and anybody that is concerned with the accountability on this matter.
Yeah.
Now, they know to themselves that they are corrupt at a different level. And basically, I could see the PR team there at the office of the president saying, don't respond to them, give it some time. In a week and so, it can blow over and then get something new to hold on to. that is what they're hoping to do, and it is the onus is with it's on us to actually keep these issues alive. And that's why I say the conversation needs to be expanded, because it's not only GRA, it's all of the public institutions have been infiltrated. But all of the public institutions is operating in that manner.
Let us add another one, because I see our viewers are connecting the dots for us. So let's add another one. The Ghana Police Force. We were here and we know and heard who was the nanny, who was the midwife, who was the wedding planner. Stakeholders were reached out to for money to plan and execute a wedding of a senior policeman. All of that is in the public domain. How much money in bank accounts and all of that. When you marry Sugate to President Ali in Vice Gate, and you marry that to what's happening in the Ghana Police Force, look at this country. Look at this. And if that's what the big boys at the top doing with impunity and immunity, imagine what the ones at the bottom. And as you raise a very important point, what we're teaching the kids, because people in the public service watching this and saying, well, why being nicer?
Basically.
Like a food.
Basically.
If I'm eating a food, if I'm bread big, it's up nice and so on the bag, thing.
Yeah, they're consuming what we call in economics superior goods. They consume superior goods. We, the people of the country, we are left to consume inferior goods.
Yeah.
Because the leadership is only concerned with their own lifestyles being catered to, and they want to make sure that the people remain basically dependent on them. Now, I want to make to stress a point when it comes to that issue that you just mentioned here with the police force, and it goes to show, and I think it is an example that smart people, especially when it comes to political hopeful person that want to enter politics and they want to have a career in politics and to make representation for the matters that you're passionate about. When you see those issues, you understand the nature of the beast that is the PPP. They will groom you, they will feed you, they will empower you, but you dare not ever step against them, because they will turn all guns to you, metaphorically speaking, of course. Before the comments, they were speaking about guns. Metaphorically speaking, they will turn all guns towards you if you dare speak against them at any point in time. So don't ever believe, though, I'm too big for this, I'm too big for them to turn against me, or I'm too
influenced. They've turned guns on people literally too. They've turned guns literally on people too. So I don't want to start from saying that. The PPP, they're known for that. They're known for that. I mean, we got so many examples, from George Bacchus right down to Crummy Wing, right down to what's his name, Waddle. They've turned guns on people. So I don't want to shy away from saying the PPP is a criminal mafia enterprise. And this is what it is. When you connect these things isolated, might say it's a one-off, is a one invoice, is a one stakeholder, 2 or 3. But when you put them together, look at this spool in 5 short years. And that's why I find it so hard. Some friends we had, some friends we lost along the way could don a t-shirt now and say, I with them, Judicial, as I wrap up, I don't know, they say you on a list someplace or some nonsense with the PPP and stuff.
Sir, let me say, right, and it's important because in addition to you asking me this here, I will speak about this matter publicly on my on other platforms, particularly my own. And it's important for the viewers, particularly our coalition supporters, to understand what is at play. If there is one thing that the PPP has understood over the years, is that politics has moved away from being knock on the door alone, and it has graduated and it has undergone a metamorphosis. Now politics is how you can get into the psyche of the voter. It is at a level of psychological warfare, and that is what is at play right there. If you are to look primarily at the persons or the PPP want to push out a propaganda. Oh, don't worry, Doretta. She may want to leave and go where.
Mhm.
If you look at the other persons that they're saying it about, you would understand that they're trying to destroy the concept of trust within the coalition support base, because they know that's where our strength lies, particularly when it comes to the upcoming political representatives that we have. We have strong political leaders, and I am confident that they will not be defected.
Mm-hmm.
Sherrod, when it comes to me personally, I can say this. There is nothing that the PPP has that I have any interest in.
Mm-hmm.
I entered politics because of where I came from. I came from, as I would say, the most humblest of beginning. There is nothing that excites me about any bright light.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not in politics to represent people, then you need not be in politics. If you want to represent yourself and you're looking for personal benefit, come out of political life. Go into the private sector. The private sector is profit motivated. Public office should only be motivated by a deep sense of personal alignment with the struggles of ordinary Guyanese.
Yeah.
And that is where I find my alignment. My commitment would always be to the people of this country that put me where I am in Parliament today.
Yeah.
Nobody else, no institution would ever get my support. My support will always be to the people of this country. I find favor in knowing that a coalition setting is the way to go in Guyana. We do not have the constitutional framework that says, oh, we can collate after an election. So the onus is it's on us to collate before an election. And there is no personal gain that will ever sway me from going in the direction that this is what is right for the people of this country. That will be my only incentive ever in politics. That's where you have to be. And as I said, one of my colleagues will say it, and he says it best: if we got to eat rice and salt, if they punish us to that level, so be it. Because once you have the breath of life in you, you fight for people. If you move away from fighting for people, then come out of politics. Don't be there. If you want to be in the private sector and fight for yourself, that is fine. Go in the private sector, fight for yourself. But for me and my household, we will continue to fight for the coalition supporters, because those are the people that we represent.
This morning.
I will never falter in my support for the coalition support base. Never, ever.
Yeah. I doubt you. Endorsed. Let us end the broadcast on that very high note. On that very high note. Endorsed. Right? Endorsed. And now you see, you got all kind of coalition. You got to be specific. I with the coalition that we know. I believe 120%. This is my true statement. I with the coalition that we know. All right. And as I said when we started, we had the analogy of the relationship. Teeth and tongue must bite. But I'm still a firm believer, like you, Julia. We can do this thing. We're better together in this regard. We are better together. Let's leave it on that high note. Let us leave it on that high note. Right? We are dug in here. Right? We're dug in this thing here. We're fighting from this position on the field. Right? That's the time this morning, folks, and that's the program. MP Judicial Fernandez, thanks for stopping by and helping to give guidance to some of this discussion this morning. Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to stop by and speak to our base, our
and
coalition
supporters. And comment here. You know, I see Shireen says, I'm with you. Ronaldo Cassia says, yes, my friend. I'm hearing some amens in there too. And you can watch the comments at your end.
I will take a look at this a bit later. But, you know, as you close off, I just want to end by saying to our supporters out there, we coming on to the 2015 election, it wasn't an easy road, but we got it done. We got it done then, and we're gonna get it done again. You see, do not entertain and let the psychological warfare get to you as a people. Do not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you entertain it, it's gonna get to you at some point. We are here to support your cause and your cause alone. And the criminalized organization that has become the state under the PPP's watch, we must tear that down. We must rebuild, reform, and the benefits of every resource in this country must be directed to you, the people, without you having to be demoralized and join lines to benefit from it altogether. So it's a fight, and we're gonna fight it to last, because you motivate us. You, the people, motivate us to keep pressing on, and press on we will. So thank you again, Sharon.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, MP Fernandez. Thank you guys for being here with us this morning. Let us again end on that very high note. Have a fantastic day. We're going to see you on the other side. Thank you so much. Stay